The ideas, procedures, and suggestions contained within this podcast are not intended as a substitute for consulting with a medical professional. All matters regarding your health and fitness require medical consultation and supervision. Welcome to the Warrior Wellness Podcast, a podcast for military members, veterans, and first responders focusing on fitness, health, nutrition, and biohacking. Our mission with this podcast is to introduce America's heroes to lifestyle habits and hacks that will help them live healthier, happier lives, and in turn, be fit enough to continue their support of their communities and country.
Introducing the new Fireteam Whiskey fitness and nutrition app. Everything you need to get fit and lose weight right at your fingertips. Choose from hundreds of fitness videos and fitness plans. Search for workouts by fitness level, equipment available, or body part you want to work. Choose from several nutrition plans or customize your macros. Your entire fitness, nutrition, and wellness plan is all scheduled for you on your calendar. Text a Fireteam Whiskey trainer anytime for tips, tricks, or motivation. Achieve your health and fitness goals this year with the Fireteam Whiskey app. You can get a free 2-week trial on the app by going to fireteamwhiskey.com. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Warrior Wellness Podcast, coming to you from my car. This is an adapt and overcome day, that's for sure. I keep telling myself that over and over again today. Said it about 5 times. So, it is what it is. Let's just move on. I don't have my fancy microphone, so I'm going to try and enunciate. Hopefully the quality is as good as it's been. Hope you guys can forgive me for some technical issues this morning, but I am so excited about who we're talking to today. We're talking to Jon Macaskill, and I found Jon on LinkedIn, and I was so stinking intrigued by what he does. So Jon is a retired Navy SEAL commander, and he is now training other leaders in mindfulness, basically. So he trains on a lot of stuff, but mindfulness is the general category. So he was a Navy SEAL. He was in the Navy for 24 years. He served in multiple leadership positions, from the battlefield to an operations center in the boardroom. His style of teaching leadership is unconventional, yet highly effective. So I can't wait to find out what that unconventional means. Other than there's tons of pictures of him on his website. You have to check it out, doing meditation, which you don't really see Navy SEALs doing too often. That's not the first thing you think of when you think Navy SEAL. He is passionate about helping people and organizations become the best versions of themselves through mindfulness coaching, keynote speaking, and grit and resilience training. So I hope you love this interview with Jon Macaskill. I hope you find it interesting. I know you will, because he sounds like a super interesting guy. Well, Jon Macaskill, thank you so much for being on the Warrior Wellness Podcast. And I'm so psyched to talk to you today, because you don't often see Navy SEAL paired with meditation and mindfulness in the same kind of wheelhouse. Right. So I was really interested in your story, your background, and what you're doing now with leaders, with military leaders, with boardroom leaders. So let's just get started. Can you talk a little bit about your military background?
Sure. Yeah. So first, thanks for having me on the show. I always enjoy sharing this message and sharing these practices. So again, thanks for having me. And then as far as my military background, I served in the Navy for 24 years, enlisted right out of high school, ended up getting picked up from the enlisted ranks to go to the Naval Academy. From the Naval Academy, I went into the Navy SEAL teams, and then served the rest of my career attached to or in the SEAL teams themselves. So 24 total years, 17 of which was within the special operations community. And now I'm living out here in Colorado Springs, retired last year in August of 2020, and living out here in Colorado Springs with my beautiful bride and 3 very young children. I've got a 4-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old son, and now an 8-week-old daughter. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. Well, Colorado Springs is awesome. Definitely, I've spent a little time there.
We love
Yeah,
it.
gorgeous, gorgeous. So, so let's jump to what basically led me to reaching out to you. You go from Navy SEAL to teaching mindfulness. How the heck do you make a jump like that? Like, what the heck? So talk about
Yeah.
how that happened.
Well, I funny enough, I scrolled through some of your older episodes, and I saw that you interviewed Errol Dobler, and Errol is also kind of in the same space. And then you've got Mark Divine, who's also in the same space. And it's funny is as these practices get more readily accepted by, I don't know, the type A personality and the masculine personality, I think that more and more people are going to be doing it, which is good. But I say that all to say that I was one of those people who was kind of against these practices because I thought that they were for the weak of mind. I thought that they were for yogis and hippies and monks. And not that I have anything wrong with any of those, but it's just not who I am, or not who I thought that I was. And I got it recommended to me. I got meditation and then living mindfully recommended to me after I battled with some stress and anxiety in my time in the military and depression that I was originally on medication for. And that medication numbed me to the pain, which was good, but it also numbed me to any sense of fulfillment or sense of happiness. And so I started having some very dark thoughts while I was on the medication. I wanted to come off of it, went and saw counseling. And one of the counselors recommended it. Hey, if you don't want medication, why don't you try meditation? So I tried it, and long story short, after laughing at him initially, he convinced me to practice. And about 2 months later, I started to see the positive effects in my life, both personally and professionally. And then I had other people asking me what I was doing differently, and I started sharing what I was doing. And so I saw that as an opportunity, not just an opportunity, but an obligation to pay it forward and share these practices, and not just as a hobby, but actually make it my profession to share these practices with as many people as will listen. So that's how I went from the special operations community into doing what I do now.
Yeah, so I have a couple of follow-up questions through that. So you were introduced to meditation by your therapist?
I was, yeah.
Wow, that's rare. And I'm a licensed mental health counselor, so I can speak for all therapists. Right. Yeah, I just find that rare, did he in session take you through meditation, like show you how to do it?
No, he wasn't a teacher of any sort. And funny enough, since then, one of the books that I studied when I was learning was called A Clinician's Guide to Mindfulness. So it's for counselors, for psychiatrists, for licensed clinical social workers to take people through very simple practices. But no, he did not. He told me about the benefits of it, physical, emotional, spiritual, professional, and personal. And then he helped me download some apps that I could start with. And quite honestly, like day one, being a type A personality, I jumped into a very long meditation and made it about 30 seconds into it and realized that I'd bitten off more than I could chew, thought to myself that I couldn't meditate. And I went back to him and I told him, hey, this stuff's not working for me. I'm not a person who can meditate. And he said, well, what did you do? I said, well, I sat down for an hour and I tried to meditate and made it about 30 seconds. He's like, well, that's like trying to run a marathon without ever having run a mile before. You got to work your way up to that. So start small, start with some simple breath work, and then work your way up to more in-depth and longer meditations. And that's what I did. And then, again, about 2 months later, I was hooked, and I saw the changes in my life, and others saw it in me. So here I am.
Yeah, I love that analogy too. It is kind of like physical training. I mean, you can't expect to run a marathon while you barely have gotten off your couch.
Right.
So that's
right.
I love looking at it that way. I think for anyone who is trying to make a significant change in their life, they should kind of look at it like that. It's, we get so frustrated and we throw in the towel so quickly because we're not getting results immediately. We have to kind of step back and go, this is training. Like it's a train up to being able to do this, all the time at a whim or whatever.
Absolutely.
Change.
Absolutely. And we have to give ourselves grace as well as we see ourselves, quote unquote, failing or not being able to meditate. We need to give ourselves that grace and say, you know what, maybe I bit off more than I could chew initially, and then break it down into smaller, more digestible chunks. And then it's a lot easier to eat, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how was your life different? You say people noticed a change in you. What were the things
Yeah.
that were different?
Well, quite honestly, physically, I was looking different. I was sleeping better, so I didn't have the deep dark bags under my eyes. I looked more bright eyed. I was communicating better. A lot of the time when I was trying to just complete a sentence, there would be a lot of stutters, a lot of ums, a lot of ahs, not being able to complete a full thought, being able to focus on one thing at a time. Whereas before, I had my computer open, I had 10 different windows open. On each one of those windows, I had another 10 tabs. I had my emails, I had my PowerPoints, I had my phone next to me getting texts, I had my calendar next to me. I had a lot of things going on at once, and I never completed, or rarely completed, a lot of things. I would complete one or two things here and there, but I would rarely get through a major project. Once I was starting to study meditation and meditate regularly, and then actually implement mindfulness in my life, I was able to focus more regularly at work, be more creative, more productive. So I would get through what normally would take me 8 hours of work, I would get through in 5 hours. And then I would have 3 hours to go home and spend with my family. And when I was with my family, I wasn't as distracted. I was focused on my family. The thing that I noticed first and most was, at the time, my now 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old, she was 3 weeks old. And I would go in the middle of the night when it was my turn to feed her, and I would give her a bottle. And the whole time that I'm giving her that bottle, I'm thinking, okay, what's tomorrow hold? What's my to-do list look like? Or I have this negative narrative. I'm telling myself that I'm not good enough to be here, that whatever. But it was on everything else besides the moment and that baby right there with me right then. And then I started practicing regularly. And now she's about 3 months old in this story, 4 years old now, but 3 months old in the story. And I'm feeding her this bottle, and I'm paying attention to her. I'm paying attention to the noises that she's making, and the fact that she's reaching up and grabbing my hand with her little hands. And I realized what a miracle I had right in front of me. And then I would go back to bed, and rather than ruminating or stewing over the to-do list or what I had screwed up yesterday, I'd pass back out. I'd fall asleep. And that's where I saw major changes. Was my sleep improved, my productivity, focus, and just my sense of fulfillment with my family. Those were the major changes that I saw.
Yeah. And I would imagine anybody listening to this right now or watching this would raise their hand and say, yes, I could use a little bit more of that in my life, right? I mean, who doesn't?
Right.
Who doesn't want more productivity, less stress, better sleep, more, quality LinkedIn kind of valued time with your family? Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, we all need all that. So this is for everybody. I mean, if you're a human being, you want those things. So let's see how you get those. All right. So you talk about, I love this on your website, and I wanted you to kind of talk a little bit about this. You talk about the 4 pillars that set the foundation to success. And I loved these. Can you kind of talk briefly just about what these are? It's grit, resilience, compassion, preparedness, and why are they so important as the foundation?
Yeah. Well, what I've seen in my time just in life, and life in general, and then subsequently in the Navy specifically, I saw bad leaders and I saw good leaders. I saw good teams and I saw bad teams. What all the good leaders and good teams had in common were those 4 things: preparedness, resilience, grit, and compassion. Preparedness is, having a vision, having a plan, having the ability to foresee some things that are going to happen, right? And by planning for that, and I talk about mindfulness and meditation, and here I am talking about planning for the future, but planning for the future and worrying about the future are 2 different things. So you still have to be able to plan for the future. And I think if a team or a leader does not do that, they're bound to fail.
Are you fire team ready? Try the Fireteam Whiskey Spec Ops Keto Joe Shake. The Keto Joe Shake is a medium-chain triglyceride MCT shake derived from non-GMO coconut oil. It contains 17 grams of MCT, 10 grams of high-quality whey protein, and no sugar. It's sweetened with stevia leaf, so you can keep those carbs low and shred that body fat. 25 milligrams of caffeine to give you extra energy for the gym or your busy day. Fireteam Whiskey has been supplying military members deployed all over the world with Spec Ops shakes for over 3 years. Fireteam Whiskey Spec Ops shakes are fueling the fight. Whether you are just trying to lose a few pounds or trying to get that extra edge in the gym, the Fireteam Whiskey Spec Ops shakes are for you. Make sure to stock up now and support our efforts to raise funds for Team RWB, our nonprofit partner that provides social support and fitness events for our nation's heroes.
The next thing is resilience. So I talked about preparing for all the foreseeable things that are going to happen. You plan for the mission, you have a plan, right? But there's always contingencies. There's something that's going to go wrong, whether it's the weather, whether you lose a person on the battlefield, whether you lose an asset, whether you lose communications, there's something that's going to go wrong. And there's a lot of stuff that's unforeseeable. And that's where the resilience comes in. The resilience comes in that something happened that knocked you off your feet that you didn't plan for, but because you're resilient, because you have trained to be resilient, you're able to bounce back. And then later in the after action or the debrief or the lessons learned or whatever you want to call it, later when you're sitting around a table and you're talking about, okay, what went wrong? What went right? What could we do better? This is where you learn how you could be better. This is where you come back stronger, you come back smarter, you come back more courageous, you come back better. So that's the resilience side. The grit side is where you set goals and you actually work and you achieve those goals. A lot of people set goals, a lot of people set visions, a lot of people set standards, and they fail to attain those. If you have grit, you're much more likely to set a goal and attain that goal. And you can develop grit through putting yourself in really uncomfortable situations regularly. So getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And then finally, compassion. As a leader, you have to know what your people need and how to provide that for them. So we talk about compassion. I've got to make sure that I talk about sympathy, empathy as well. A lot of people talk about sympathy, a lot of people talk about empathy, and a lot of people talk about compassion, and they confuse the three. Sympathy is feeling sorry for someone because they're going through something. Empathy is feeling what it is they're feeling, actually physically feeling those feelings. And then compassion is basically empathy with a desire to take action. So that's what we want. We want leaders who have the ability to feel what their people are feeling, so that they know what they need, know what they want. And then the next step is that desire to take action. And so that's the compassion for your people. But then also as a leader, you have to have compassion for yourself. You have to take care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself as the leader, then you're not going to be able to take care of your team. So those are the four things, and those where I've found overlap between those four things. Again, preparedness, grit, resilience, and compassion. That's where I found the most successful teams and leaders. And I hear people say, well, yeah, you talked about those four pillars, but what about vision? What about courage? What about integrity, honesty, whatever the list may be, the attribute that they mentioned that's a leadership attribute? Well, yeah, I think you're going to have vision, you're going to have courage, you're going to have integrity, you're going to have that whole list of leadership attributes that are good to have if you have those four: preparedness, resilience, grit, and compassion.
Yeah. And I mean, that compassion aspect, I just love that you include that as the four. Yes, of course, there's other pillars that could be a part of that, but that being one of the main ones was really intriguing to me. And I'm sure that if anybody listening has been a military leader, maybe you've learned this lesson yourself the hard way. I did myself as a young, brand new lieutenant coming in as a platoon leader. And I learned that lesson the hard way. I wanted to be that hard charging lieutenant, And especially being a
Yeah.
female, you're coming in and you've got something to prove, and, you want to be a hard ass and hold people accountable, and, and set the fact that you're in charge now. And I learned that lesson the hard way. I had a soldier who I kept having to discipline over and over again. He kept showing up late. He was just, I saw him as a dirtbag soldier. And until finally, we were about to take his money, like he was about to lose his rank. I forgot. I said, you know what? I've got to take off this lieutenant hat and put my counselor hat on, and show some compassion for this guy, and actually start
Right.
asking him questions about, hey, what's going on? And that's what I did. I sat down with him, and I actually literally took off my rank, off my uniform, and I put my hat aside. I said, rank is, I'm Stephanie. I'm not Lieutenant Lincoln. Man, what's going on? Like, and it took a while. It took some coaxing. Me and our company commander kind of coaxed. He finally opened up. He started crying. He told us his lights had been turned off. He had lost his job. His car had broken down. They literally had no water or power in their house, and he had a 6-year-old child and a wife at home.
Yikes.
It's like, and I'm expecting this guy to show up and work for me every day with this going on in his life. Like, he's worried about being able to feed his family, that's what, and that was a kick in the gut. It's like, man, like,
Sure.
I could have found this out days ago if I would have had a little compassion for this guy and stopped focusing on being a leader. It's like, well, part of leadership is having empathy and compassion and understanding, who your subordinates are and what's going on with them.
Exactly.
And I tell you, I mean, from that moment on, we took a collection. I went with him. We paid his light bill. We paid like 3 months of it. We kept it very quiet. We through the officers in the battalion. Got his water and his lights turned back on. We got him like a $500 gift certificate for groceries. Took him grocery shopping. And then we went job hunting, and we got him a job. We literally went in uniform, and he was hired on the spot.
Nice.
And I tell you, who do you think was my hardest working soldier for the rest of that training period?
Right.
Him.
Exactly.
And that was my lesson of compassion from that moment. It's like, that is such an important part of this leadership process.
Absolutely. I mean, the people that work for you are just that. They are people, and they have their own lives outside of uniform. And quite often, what is happening outside of uniform affects what they're doing and who they are inside of uniform. So understanding what it is that's going on with them is critical to being a good leader, and then being an effective leader, an effective team.
Yeah. And you talk about this term loved leader. So can you talk about what a loved leader is?
Yeah, I mean, you basically just hit on it. I mean, so when I say love leader, I'm not talking about somebody who sends cards to all their troops or to other people on Valentine's Day or their birthdays. I mean, although that's nice, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is somebody who does have that compassion, and compassion is a huge piece of who they are. And when a leader shows that compassion, not showing weakness, but showing compassion for their people, soldiers, sailors, Marines in the military, outside of the military, showing compassion for your employees, whatever, that's huge. And when you do that, your people are going to have a sense of endearment towards you. They're not going to, look at you as a soft leader. Again, the term loved is often looked at as weak. I'm not talking about weak. You can be a love leader and be strong. We've had incredible presidents of this country who've been strong and have been loved, but they're not weak, right? So the point there is that the love leader is going to be more effective than the tyrant. If you come in with that super heavy hand, like you were talking about before, you came in, you thought you were supposed to be a hard ass, right? That's kind of that's what we're taught in the military is, hey, Lieutenant, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now, right? And you think that you have to be a hard ass. Well, sometimes sitting down with that person and finding out what it is they need and then giving them what they need enables them to be a much more effective part of that grander unit. So that soldier, you even mentioned it again, that soldier came back and was the hardest working member in the unit. Well, if you're able to multiply that across every person in your organization by being that compassionate and loved leader, not weak, but loved, you're going to be more effective. So that's what I talk about when I talk about the love leader, not weakness, but being loved, showing compassion. And then your people, they want to work for you. They want to impress you. Talk about Daniel Pink has a book called Drive, where there's extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. A lot of the time, extrinsic motivation is you give somebody a bonus or you promise them time off if they do X, Y, or Z. Well, more often than not, that ends up failing and actually ends up setting the system and the organization up for failure. If you're able to motivate your people to do what they need to do by being a love leader or by giving them the autonomy to do something for themselves, quite often you'll find they're going to surprise you. They're going to work to do what they need to do. And that ultimately sets, again, the leader up for success, but more importantly, the organization up for success.
Yeah. Yeah. And as the leader, it makes your job a lot easier, you know? I mean, it really does,
absolutely.
right? When you have people who are happy to show up and work for you and not make your life difficult on a daily basis, man, it's a pleasure to be a supervisor, to be a leader of people.
Yeah.
Set up that relationship of respect and compassion, like you say. Yeah.
Right.
So, and the last major thing that I wanted to talk about, and this goes kind of back into, I guess, your mindfulness teachings and what you teach leaders, is that first domino you have to knock down to be an effective leader.
Right.
So can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. There's a great book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And he has in the book writes about and then illustrates the effect of identifying the first domino in your life that you need to knock over in order to start making positive changes. So for instance, with me, I mentioned mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness and meditation allowed me to calm my mind down, allowed me to focus, which enabled me to sleep better. Because I was sleeping better, the next day I was more effective at work. Because I was more effective at work, I was able to get home earlier and spend more time with family. Because I'm more effective at work and spending more time with family, I'm finding more sense of fulfillment. Because I'm finding a more sense of fulfillment, I'm sleeping better again. Because I'm sleeping better, now I have time and energy to go to the gym. Because I'm working out and getting in the gym, now I want to eat healthier. So that was my first domino for me to making a whole lot of positive changes in my life. Mindfulness meditation might not be your first domino, but you have to figure out what that first domino is. And don't try to change and knock down a whole lot of dominoes simultaneously, because more often than not, what happens is, for instance, New Year's Day rolls around, right? And everybody's got this whole list of New Year's resolutions that they're going to do. They try to change everything at once. And 5 days into the new year, they've quit on all that. If they just set one thing in motion, just committing to getting to the gym, not changing your diet, not getting more sleep, not doing anything else, just commit to getting to the gym. Maybe that's their first domino. And once they start to see changes physically, now they're like, oh, you know what? I'm feeling better. And now you just naturally sleep better. And there's that chain kind of, again, that I mentioned before. So figuring out what that first domino is to knock over is key. And then in the illustration that Gary Keller has in The One Thing, one domino, if you knock that first domino over, the next domino that it can knock over is much bigger. And then the next one is much bigger. And I forget how many dominoes, but in the illustration, it's something like 20 or 30 dominoes. You just start with a regular sized domino and you knock that over. The next one's bigger. The next one's bigger. In like 20 or 30 dominoes, you're knocking over something the size of the Eiffel Tower. And, obviously that's an analogy, but you may have a giant domino in your life that you can't knock over day one. But if you start with something small and work your way up, you can get to that giant domino pretty quickly. It's pretty amazing how quickly that happens.
Yeah. And I think that, and I love that. I can't wait to look up all these books you're referencing, by the way, because I'm huge into reading. What I love about what you just said is, you've got to find that one thing, and sometimes that's a process too. So what I would suggest, and I feel like a broken record all the time, because basically what people do is they kind of reach out to other people or social media, and they they try and get advice, and it's like,
Right.
what are you doing? Why, it's like the blind leading the blind. Like, why are you why are you doing a Google search on, how to fix your life? It's just like,
Right.
that's not going to be effective. Like, you need to work with an expert on how to do this. Otherwise, you're just going to waste your time. You're going to waste your energy. You're going to spin your wheels. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to quit. And then you're going to say, well, it didn't work. I tried to find that domino, but I couldn't find it, so obviously this is all a bunch of horse hockey, right? So This is why you need to hire a coach.
That's right.
This is the reason why you need a guide.
Coaches hire coaches. So I have a coach, and it's huge to help to keep you accountable. So I fully believe in the effect of coaches and masterminds, whatever it is, but it's pretty rare, and it's really difficult to do things on your own. And sometimes you're not going to find what it is you need personally without having someone with that outside perspective looking in. So I highly recommend getting a coach in life and in the gym and everywhere else that you can afford it, because it's going to make you better.
Exactly. And it's an investment. It's an investment not only of money, of course. That's what most people focus on. First of all,
Right.
Well, I can't afford it. Well, you can't not afford it, because if you just waste your time and spin your wheels, you're going to be wasting all of that anyway. So why not just invest your time, invest your money, invest your energy in a concentrated form, and get this done in your life and actually achieve this, instead of just being on this endless roller coaster of trying and then failing, and then you never get out of this feedback loop, right? That's what most people, unfortunately, most people who are trying to make a change in their life, they're just stuck in that feedback loop, and they don't reach out and get help from experts. They're just constantly just asking social media or Google on how to do this, or and you got to get an expert. So speaking of experts, so what do you do with your consulting firm, Macaskill Consulting? What services do you provide?
Yeah, so Macaskill Consulting, the term consulting is a very broad umbrella term. I do one-on-one coaching. I do executive coaching. I do public speaking. I run a podcast under that with a friend of mine called Men Talking Mindfulness. I am subcontracted under several other organizations where I provide pre-recorded content of mindfulness and meditation so that people can get onto this journey themselves. The first one being Movement RX. We have a 21-day mindfulness experience that you can join there. Another one is My Steady Mind. And we have a 9-week mindfulness journey or a module there. And then the next one is Mission 60. And that with Mission 60, it's a 60-day challenge that includes mindfulness as part of their spiritual component. They have spiritual, mental, physical, social, professional, and I'm missing one other component there, but they have 6 components, and it's a 60-day nonstop challenge. And it's pretty powerful to see the changes. But yeah, Macaskill Consulting, macaskillconsulting.com is my website, and you can check it out and see the different things that I do there. And I just have a lot of fun helping out people. That's what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check that out. To all of our listeners and watchers, if you are ready to make a change, which I know you are, because everybody has something they need to be working on, go check out all the things that John has to offer on his website, and that's macaskillconsulting.com. Well, thank you so much, John, for being on the Warrior
Thank you,
Wellness
Stephanie.
podcast.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for the interview.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Warrior Wellness podcast. Please leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify, and make sure to subscribe or follow us on those platforms. Take a screenshot of your review and send it to info@fireteamwhiskey.com with your name and mailing address, and you might just win a prize. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you at the next episode of the Warrior Wellness podcast.